Normally you do a bit more than a double. Normally in the night you do a triple. But yeah, Alex Lynn out, double stint. Good stint, 3:52.6 average. But Pierre Guidi behind 3:52.2 average. So
yeah, don't forget Alessandro is only in his first stint on those tyres, so that should drop as they wear.
Yeah.
So Alex Lynn out. And maybe they're just rotating the drivers now with tyres. Double stint the tyres, double stint the drivers, keep the drivers fresh.
Yeah, they're not allowed to run more than 2 stints on these soft tyres, are they?
Yes.
So that's why they're doing that.
Yep. So if you have to change tyres, you may as well change drivers. Keep them fresh, keep them sharp.
But on the downside, the driver doesn't get quite as much rest as you would like.
Except then you know that that's the situation. So like us, instead of saying you know we're on every couple of hours, you take a double stint out, and so you will flip-flop 2 drivers. Tony Wells going slowly in the Nielsen Racing LMP2 car. That car in 24th place, and a big lockup. Look at those brakes glowing red hot.
He's slowed down because he's got an enormous flat spot.
Yeah.
Or a puncture.
So picking himself back up to speed now. Slow zone still at the first chicane on the Mulsanne. He's got problems. Yeah, you may well have a tyre going soft at the back, which would explain the big lockup at the front, because it'll be sitting down at the back, so the front wheel, one front wheel will be partly off the ground and the other one will lock up more easily. Here is the 92 Porsche that has had all the trouble in Christendom.
So this will be Michael Christensen getting back in the car.
Yep. And in fact, they are no longer last in GTE Pro, because the problems for the WeatherTech car of Tony Vielander, which is still in the garage being repaired, has brought the Porsche from 8th up to 7th. So, not really fair to say they've overtaken somebody, but somebody else has gone backwards past them. So, not sure if the WeatherTech racing car will reappear, and if so, when. I shall hopefully have a little bit of information. I shall go and have a delve, because I have a contact. WeatherTech car suffered its first delay with a broken right front shock absorber, and now a big hit from the Racing Team Netherlands car. Toyota leading, one relatively healthy car ahead of the 2 Rebellions, number 7 car after a half-hour turbo change, 6 laps off the lead. LMP2 dominated by United Autosports and Jota. They're the 1, 2, 3. In the GT Pro class, the AF Corsa number 51 Ferrari now ahead of the 97 Aston, but it should stop in a couple of laps and that will flip-flop back, with the Aston Martin 95 car in 3rd position, and they are all just outside the top 20. Porsche's 91 car on the a lap behind the 95 Aston Martin, and only just 2 laps ahead of the 98 Aston that leads in GTE AM. The 90 car now in 2nd place after last round of pit stops. Dempsey Proton 77 car up to 3rd in the GTE AM class. In the pits still is the Dragon Speed number 21 car, dropping rapidly down the order. So too the WeatherTech 63 car after a hit from the Racing Team Netherlands car. That is sinking like a stone. And behind the 88 Dempsey Proton car, there are no further runners. So 37 disqualified, black flagged out of the race. 16 with accident damage, 30 with accident damage, 4 with accident damage, 33 everything that could go wrong with the car went wrong with it. 52 with accident damage, 55 with accident damage, and 11 with an unspecified transmission or drivetrain failure that left it abandoned at the side of the circuit. So the number 37 Jackie Chan DC racing car that led in LMP2 for much of the first half of the race stopped out on the circuit. Gabriel Aubry repaired the car and got it back to the pit lane, but using a component that was handed to him by a team member. That is not allowed, and the car was black flagged and is out of the race.
Bit naughty of the team, but I guess if they didn't try it, the car would have stayed where it was.
Yes, and they did say, it said in the statement, the team had admitted that they had handed the driver a component, but without it he would not have been able to get the car back to the pit lane, and they knew it was not going to be legal. And so I'm afraid Sam Hignett and his team always knew that was going to be the case, and so it was. So the car got back, but is out of the race. We'll find out if we know what's going to happen with the WeatherTech car in a moment or two. This slow zone still continues from the exit of Tertre Rouge down to the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight as they continue to fix the tyre barriers there. Our race leader, the number 8 Toyota, number 1 Rebellion in the pits at the moment. Norman Nato taking over that car from Gustavo Menezes. Louis Delatraz, the rookie, in 3rd place in car number 3. Delatraz already a winner at Le Mans this year. How so, I hear you ask? Did he win the 24-hour motorcycle race a couple of weeks ago? He did not. He won Virtual Le Mans, the sim race that we held in June as part of the Williams esports team that claimed the victory. So Louis Delatraz making his first real Le Mans start could end up just possibly, with a lot of luck, some freaky twists of turns and fortune,
leader in,
winning Le Mans twice in 1 year. Here is the LMP2 leader. Alex Brundle is in the pit lane. Felipe Albuquerque is in the pit lane. Albuquerque on his way out now in 22. So that's an undercut. Or he's on his way in now in 22. Yes, that was the wrong end of the pit lane. So it's not an undercut. He follows his teammate in. 23.8 seconds between them. Remember when they were nose to tail? How has that gap opened up? Michelin Man gives the thumbs up, and 32 trundles away. Well, his dad's been an overall race winner. Can Alex Brundle take a class win here as well? Long way away. Almost 10 hours of racing still to go. A couple of hours of darkness in that, and who knows what twists and turns may still wait in store for so many of our teams.
He really did lose a lot of time over that last stint. As you say, they left the pits nose to tail and after the last stop, so Alex really putting the hammer down.
And it does seem that the 32 car has had a little bit in hand in terms of pace over 22. Remember way back a few hours ago when Paul di Resta was stuck behind Phil Hansen, and then as soon as he got by, he was able to just creep away.
Yeah, he pulled out a gap of about 15 seconds, so the table has turned the opposite way to a 25-second deficit now for Albuquerque over Brundle.
Into the slow zone, straight out to the pit lane.
It's a very long slow zone, isn't it? All the way down to the first chicane.
Yeah.
And it's putting those tyres back from the Charlie Hollings incident.
And there's the speed limiter. Look, it's just bouncing off the limiter at 80 kilometers an hour.
Looking at his steering wheel there, you can see his tyre pressures. 1.82 on the front, 1.81 on the back. We saw earlier on Ant Davidson, he was running over 2 bar, and he was complaining like anything on the radio.
Here is the Jota car, the same car that Ant Davidson was driving earlier on. It's got Antonio Felix da Costa at the wheel, and the difference between this car and the United cars in front is the tyre. This car on Goodyear rubber, and the United cars, like more of the LMP2 field, on Michelin.
It could be that the hot pressure on this car is slightly higher than the Michelin. Maybe we'll get an onboard and be able to see his steering wheel.
And of course, a different tyre, different construction, different sidewall, different philosophy. You find it in your road car. If you change your tyres from one brand to another, quite often the tyre pressure that felt comfortable before feels completely wrong, and you may have to go higher or lower just to suit the construction of the different tyre that you're using. And if you can feel that on a road car, imagine how much more sensitive a racing car is to tyre pressure. It's not something you often think about in a road car, but it makes a huge difference to performance in a racing car. Clearing out the vents of our GTE leader, Alessandro Pierguidi, in the AF Corsa pit lane. But that should allow Maxime Martin to go past him in the Aston Martin. The Aston was in front. Fuel only, no tyres, no driver change. So will that be a significant difference? He does come out back in front. And where's the 97 Aston? Is that it? Hoving up behind? Or is that it coming onto the straight? Looks like that green windscreen strip might be the 97 car. Our director's doing a good job if he spotted it. It is 97 in second place, and that'll be about a 15-second gap back.
So I think what happened there was Alex Lynn probably stopped during green running, and with the Pierre Guidi car, the 51 car, he was able to stop, or his pit stop itself, the scheduled pit stop, was during that long slow zone, and that means he's, as you said, gained about 15 seconds.
Now, of course, what happens now as they go into the slow zone, second place in Pro and Am, nose to tail, because that's Johnny Adams, TF Sport Aston, which is second in the Am class now, because Paul Dallolana's 98 car is in front.
Looking at that vision there, quite often the different manufacturers will set their car, the limit of their car, so they're all on a speed limiting button on their steering wheel, and it looks like the Aston Martin's set slightly quicker than the Porsche because they're right up the back of that Porsche and they want to go a bit quicker.
Well, there's the answer. That's the bit of the Red River Sport Ferrari that hit the tyres, everything between the wheels.
That's looking a bit knackered.
Well, I was going to say second-hand, but I think it's worse than that, Jim.
Even the splitter got a bit of a whack on it.
Well, and it may not have been that incident, because this has had a couple of high-speed offs. I think this car has been more trouble than they were hoping for during the race. I'm not sure that any of its three drivers have had an instant free moment. Here we go. Coming down into the chicane. Is there a touch with somebody, or... Looking in the background. Nope.
Is it?
Gets it wrong under braking, spins through the gravel trap, hits two tyre stacks.
Yeah.
That was a solo effort, I'm afraid, from Charlie Hollings.
That's pretty odd, though, because, OK, you've braked too late, but there's still ample room to slow down before the tyres normally. So that suggests to me that the car wasn't slowing down well enough, or he completely missed his braking point by 100 metres.
Well, it wasn't the first time the car's been off. It had gone sideways through the gravel beforehand. So we've talked about this before. When you go through the gravel, gravel ends up in bits and places of the car, and it drops out the most inopportune moment.
They can't open the door.
They can't open the door. The door's been jammed shut.
Right, Charlie, you're in for the rest of the race.
It's bad luck if he needs a wee, isn't it?
Pass him a bottle through the door there, that'll be fine.
Of course, we are at the stage of the race where the GT Am cars, which runs steel brakes, unlike the prototype cars with carbon, that the pads could be pretty thin.
Yep.
And it's called knock-off when you run on an exit curve, and it gives a vibration through the wheel like a drrrr. What it does is it knocks the pads away from the disc, and then the driver arrives at the next corner, hits the brake pedal, and boom, it goes to the floor. And
or there's a pause as as the pads make up the distance to the disc, and you know, even a tenth of a second could be the difference between being on the track and being off it.
Well, you find normally if your pedal goes long and you have to push the brake pedal further down, what you actually get is only rear brakes, and that's maybe what happened.
Yeah, either that or a stone from an earlier excursion getting in one of the calipers, or as you say, just tired brakes, tired tyres, tired driver, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
However, they are going to have a long job getting that door open.
That 7 Toyota is not really making any inroads into either of the Rebellion cars.
Well, it's lapping a couple of seconds a lap, or did on the last lap, quicker than its teammate. But you're right, the Rebellions are only 2 or 3 seconds a lap slower. And as I said, at that rate of catching, to make up 3 laps even to third place
is a tall order.
Yeah. So 3 laps at 4 minutes. I'm going to have to get the calculator out.
9
talk
hours.
amongst yourselves.
9 hours 45 to go.
It's going to take that long, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not. They need a bit of luck, or they need to start going faster. Paul Della now the leader. I think they're maybe out of sync because Johnny Adam pitted not long ago, and only 11 seconds behind Paul Della is Johnny. So when Paul comes in for a pit stop, that gap will swing back the other way. 1 lap lead still for the Toyota over the Rebellion. Number 1, Norman Nato in the car, Louis Delatraz in P3. A rookie, of course, doing a very good job so far.
Paul's due in this lap. Johnny Adam pitted 4 laps ago, and his last stint was an 8-lap stint. So I wonder whether they chose to pit during this low zone.
Yeah, possibly.
Or he had a problem and they brought him back in after 8 laps.
Da Costa is a minute and 30 behind Albuquerque. That gap is much bigger now than it was, but of course we saw Antonio Felix da Costa make a pit stop for what looked like a seatbelt issue in his car. And then the 2 United cars still first and second. Brundle seems to have the legs on Albuquerque for some reason in this this portion of the race.
Yeah, odd, because they were running so close together for quite a while. On board with the 91 Porsche team. That's the car that hasn't had any issues. The other one had power steering failure, didn't it? So Porsche Richard Leach at the wheel of that car. Porsche not really had the pace during the race. They seemed good in qualifying. They seemed to be really up there, and then the race started and both cars gradually fell back through as Aston Martin found its feet, and of course the Ferrari leading car of Pierre Guidi. But I suspect that he... Oh, unless we've... let me just check my computer here, but did Maxime Martin stop during that slow zone?
It was long enough, he might have done, because he only stopped a couple of laps before the Ferrari. Might not have worked too well for him.
Drive through for 72. That is Marcus Gomez in the Hub Auto Racing car. Overtaking in a slow zone.
That's going to be a drama for them, because he's about a minute in front of the Iron Dames car of Michel Gatting, and that could be a place change for 10th in the GTM class. Drive through could cost him almost all of that time, couldn't it? Minute and 8, 68 seconds. It'll be about I don't know. What do you think it is through the pit lane?
There's
48
the radar.
seconds. Yeah, there's the weather radar.
As you can see, no rain at the moment. It's coming around.
Expected avoid at all. Yeah, no, it's whiffling around south of us.
Yeah, so looking back, Martin Martin, he did, Maxime Martin, he did get into the car 4 laps ago, and I think he lost out from that yellow zone because Pierre Guidi stopped during that yellow zone, which cost him less time, and vaulted back in front. So we have almost a 10-second lead now from it being the other way around.
Now but Aston Martin is on fresher tyres, isn't it?
Not much.
No, a stint. It's on a stint fresher tyres because Alessandro was on his first stint as Alex Lynn came to the end of his second.
True.
So,
okay, yeah.
So the Aston is on a first stint of tyre now with Maxime Martin, and the Ferrari on a second stint. And you know, as the race progresses and the track temperature changes, again we may see the balance of power swing between one and the other. Aston Martin had a 1-2 stranglehold early on in the heat of the day. Maybe that balance will come back to them as the temperature changes.
If I look back through the times though, so we've double stinted for the last all the way through the night. Alex Lynn, his average speed was actually quicker with the used tyre, so he did a 3:53.6 with his first stint, and then a 3:52.6 with his second stint with the used tyre. So I don't think the tyres are lasting quite well.
Well, they've got a door on, but boy, that's an ugly looking car, isn't it?
Yeah.
You ever seen the movie Christine?
No.
No. The 58 Plymouth Fury that is possessed, a Stephen King book made into a film. Car that's possessed and continually, completely rebuilds itself after crashes. Let's get to the 90 TF Sport Aston Martin, currently in second place by inches. Well, PDL is the man in front, Paul Dall'Anna. That's the 98 Aston. That was 20-odd seconds in front a stint ago, and Johnny Adam has reeled him back in. Now, this 98 car dropped back when Augusto Farfus was at the wheel, and Charlie Eastwood in the 90 car got by him and left him behind, and the same is happening again. Johnny Adam catching and looking to pass Paul Dall'Anna. Paul's got a lot of experience of this race and this car, and is not going to be an easy pass. He might be the gentleman driver, and Johnny might be the factory pro and Le Mans winner, but it ain't an easy pass. He goes by.
I'm not sure. I think there's a radio transmission will have taken place with the other car saying what's happening, that Johnny's coming, and Paul's not going to fight him too much. I would have said.
Nobody won't roll over and let his belly be tickled either. He was going to make Johnny work for that, because every half a second he loses now might be the difference between winning and losing at the end of the race.
He does get the benefit of seeing the back of Johnny's car though, and helping him around the lap, which is quite an important thing in these dark conditions.
Correct. Plus he gets a little bit of a tow as well, which takes a little bit of the strain out of his own engine. So Paul Dall'Anna in second place. Johnny Adam takes the lead. TF Sport back in front in GTE AM. And at the moment, Ricardo Pera in the 77 Dempsey Proton car. 77 was the GTE AM winner 2 years ago. And that car is currently in third place, and it is 1 lap behind. Oh, Lord, Hayley Edmonds has woken up, and she's in a good mood, everybody. Either that or she's had too much sugar already, and it's only 10...
Does that mean she's making the tea?
So 98 Aston into the pit lane, and that's why Paul Dall'Anna didn't fight it overly hard. He is coming to the end of a run, and he is in for fuel. I'm not sure whether that is the end of a double stint for the 98 Aston.
G-Drive preparing.
Not sure if that's the end of a double stint for the 98 Aston.
I can probably tell you that.
You could. That's why I poked you.
For the 98, that's Paul. He's just done one stint so far, so I imagine he's going to stay in that car.
Yeah, I agree. Little recap of what's been going on recently. That damage to the Racing Team Netherlands car after its crash with the WeatherTech Ferrari. WeatherTech Ferrari still in the garage. And I'm afraid I can't summon any news from the team. I'm afraid we have to assume that we may not see that for quite some while. 98 Aston here then. Was the leader at the beginning of the last lap and comes in second place for fuel. No tyres, just a quick wash and brush up.
Interestingly, Paul Dalla able to do one extra lap on that stint, stalls the car now, but because of that slow zone, that shows how close they are between doing 14 and 15 laps. So Paul could do 15 laps that time.
14 3/4 is no use to anybody unless there's a slow zone or a safety car, isn't it? It's such a long lap here. You don't have any fat on the bone. You either can make it or you're out of the race.
Famously,
You're going to say Frank Biela. Yeah.
2003.
Yeah. Well, it was the R8C, wasn't it? Very early on when there were two different Audis racing here, the open cars and the closed cars. The open cars, Frank Biela was driving one of the Audi Sport UK cars and didn't make it.
Well, I was here and I wasn't racing. So I reckon, and I didn't race between
1980 something then.
No. Between 99 and 2006, I didn't race here.
Oh well, that's a mere 7-year window of opportunity.
I think that car was an R8.
I think it was 2003.
Yeah.
Because I think I came that year.
Yeah.
And it was my first time back since 99.
Okay.
I plucked up the courage to come back.
You were here having meetings, were you?
No, I was just